We have our mobility practitioner for MEA, Adar Rashid Khan. He's the principal consultant at Frost and Sullivan. With over 16 years' experience in the mobility industry, Adil is a seasoned strategist and consultant and advisor. He's going to be delving into mapping the course, strategies for growth and innovation in Saudi's mobility industry, offering insights to navigate the industry's dynamic landscape. And I don't think there's anywhere more dynamic than Saudi right now. So either let's give him a big round of applause. The stage is yours.
Assalamu alaikum. Uh, a very warm good evening to everyone. The stage has been set by the previous speakers, starting from Aftab and going on to the rest. Um, it's a very important period of time that we are in Saudi Arabia because, as Sir very well mentioned, the reality of made in Saudi Arabia is finally happening. So, very exciting times that we are in. A lot of growth happening, a lot of transformation is expected. So, what we will do in today's session is mainly discuss how we can grow as a business environment and what would be the key areas to focus as we take. Sorry, okay. As we take the next steps. So the way we will discuss today is we'll start with the first two sections, which talk about the environment as a whole, the region as a whole. We will look at the impacts of the trends that are happening in the automotive and mobility space. Have a look at what it means for the aftermarket in the MENA region. Then we will have a quick look at the impact of case mobility specifically on Saudi Arabia because as we have seen, I mean, case is one of the main areas which is transforming the economy in Saudi Arabia. Then we will discuss about Saudi Arabian mobility space and see what are the main areas to focus upon and to look forward into the future. And finally, I'll take you through Frost and Sullivan as a company, how we assist in this transformational growth to our business partners in the region. Sorry. Okay. So, a quick look at the methodology that Frost and Sullivan adopts in analyzing a particular economy and charting the way forward for its economic growth. We have a time tested and proven model which we call the growth pipeline engine, which is basically addressing your transformational growth or the economy's transformational growth going forward. And it basically delves upon understanding the universe, the potential universe threadbare, looking at the global and the regional best practices, and then drilling it down to the company or the country or the industry, and then proposing business solutions which are actionable to our business clients. So, a quick view of the overall regional flavor of the automotive sector. The automotive sector currently in the MENA region is poised at phenomenal growth, but with this kind of growth and with this kind of transformation, there are challenges. Challenges that Frost and Sullivan foresees and expects the industry participants to prepare for in the future. We are looking at close to about 48% growth in the overall light vehicles on road, the light vehicle park, with an aftermarket value increasing to about 48% going forward till 2033. Now, what does it mean for a business environment as we look at it? Now, the way we look at it, we have identified the top five regional trends which are expected to impact the mobility space in the MENA region. We are seeing a lot of supply chain improvements happening because, as you very well know, post COVID there was a huge a backlog of supplies happening globally because of logistical constraints, factories being shut down, operational constraints, and so on and so forth. However, in the last 1.5 years, this has increased a lot. The betterment is visual. We can see it. The delivery lead times have increased phenomenally in the past 1.5 years, and of course they will increase. And the performance of the overall logistics chain is expected to become a lot better going forward. Now, second key aspect that we see is the intensifying competition, right? Now we are having local companies, local brands designing, manufacturing in Saudi Arabia. Of course, there is a lot of global interest in the country and in the region. So you have people coming from all over the world to Saudi Arabia to basically establish business, become a part of this phenomenal growth journey. A quick statistic on this: close to about 12 to 15% of the new vehicles sold last year were Chinese branded vehicles, right? If we look at about 7 to 8 years back, there were not many Chinese brands operational in the country. And I remember about 8 to 9 years back when we were still working with Petromin, Castrol, and so on and so forth on quick service stations. The concept of having a Chinese product was not so very well welcome in the economy at that point in time, which has changed drastically in the past 3 years, right? Post COVID, we have seen how the MGs, the Changans, the Geelys, they have become included in the top 10 fastest selling brands in the country. And going forward, we're expecting more companies to step into this and participate in this growth journey. So intensifying competition is one of the key aspects and the key business trends going forward. And every stakeholder has to prepare itself for the intensifying competition henceforth. Uh, with this intensified competition, as well as the improving supply chains, expanding vehicles in operation, we see a lot of optimization going on in the overall network development. Right? It's not only just the dealers, but the sub dealers, the spare parts wholesalers, the retailers. The physical and digital presence has been a different area of focus in the past 2 years. Frost and Sullivan focuses a lot on network optimization and network development, and we put in a lot of effort in advising our clients on a logical way of approaching this network optimization. Because, to be honest, all of us want to optimize on our costs. All of us want to increase our operational margins, right? So it's not a question of organic or inorganic growth anymore. It's not a question of just keeping on adding the number of outlets that there are in the economy anymore. It's a question of basing the choice, basing the expansion logic on hard numbers, on correct data analysis, and on correct trends analysis going forward. So for us, network optimization is one of the key areas where the mobility space of Saudi Arabia, and as well as the GCC overall, is going to look at very critically going forward. And this is where we also invest a lot of time and effort in designing more products and services to our clients, where network optimization is the crux of business growth into the future. As we know, fuel efficiency rise and electrification, it's like a global phenomenon happening everywhere. A couple of days back, I was reading that new levels of autonomous vehicles are being launched by Mercedes, BMW globally. The intent is to give more value to the consumer per dollar, right, or per real. So we see the overall share of less fuel economic vehicles going down into the future due to the overall policy structure being readjusted. The contribution in 2023 was about 25% only, which has come down from 33% in 2015. And of course, with the rise of electric vehicles, this the overall value given to the customer per dollar, that is obviously going to increase. Um, in contrary to what is the ongoing projection of these numbers, Frost and Sullivan takes a more conservative approach to the growth. Again, this is based on the existing condition of the industry, the existing condition of the infrastructure, and the analysis that we have done going 5 to 10 years into the future. So we are expecting a growth of about 12 to 15% on the optimistic side. Realistically, we expect it to be 9 to 10% of new vehicles sold being electric completely by 2030. Um, this brings me to the last area, the last trend that is one of the main influencing factors in the MENA region, which is the growth of connectivity. Now, as we know, we are getting a lot of connected vehicles being offered by OEMs in the country at the moment. But going forward, the percentage is only going to increase, and I mean, mainly with EVs, connectivity is an obvious, bloodline that connects the vehicle to the infrastructure and to other vehicles as well. So we see a lot of surge happening on the connectivity space of the MENA region, which brings into play, preventive maintenance, prognostics, in-car revenue services, and so on and so forth. So it basically converts the overall automotive ecosystem from just being a point-to-point, means of communication to a larger ecosystem of opening up new revenue streams, new business models, new services, and new platforms going forward. And we see this as a conscious change on the OEM side, that gradually the previous presentation by we saw that how Foxconn has partnered with PIF to set up a automotive entity in the country, right? We have seen the car launch by Xiaomi very lately, right? So the concept is changing now. A car is not just a collection of mechanical auto parts moving together. It is more of a software driven entity, more of an analytical element, and more of a digitalized marketplace at the moment, right? And we are seeing the shift in the OEMs that we are working with, regionally, locally, as well as globally, that the shift from a mechanical entity to a completely electronic software entity, that has been very strong in the development of these global OEMs, in their workforce, in their business models, in their service patterns, and in the product profiles. So we also see this as a conscious shift happening on the OEM side going forward into the MENA region. Now, what do all these trends mean in the terms of numbers, right? Our current evaluation of the MENA automotive aftermarket is about 23 billion US dollars. Of course, the conditions applied to this number is that our calculations are based at retail level. We are not considering labor in these calculations, and this is expected to go to up to 34 billion US dollars till 2033, growing at a 10-year CAGR of about 3.8%. Now, why have we mentioned the CAGR in two splits over here? It is to take into account that the next growth up till 2027, the next 4 to 5 year growth, we are expecting it to be a little bit on the conservative side at about 2.3%. But going forward in the next 4 to 5 years, this growth is expected to jump, primarily because the introduction of higher technology parts, higher technology products, and higher technology services, introduction of EVs, as well as the overall vehicles in operation growth. We also consider a drop in the spare parts value per car, based on the fact that the moment you have better technology products and services, your overall spending dips a little bit because of increased lifespan, increased usability, and parallel applications of similar products across different product lines. Now, what does it mean? What do these numbers mean when we look at the dealer, sub dealer, as also at the aftermarket OEM level? This means initially lower revenues specifically from mechanical, as well as preventive maintenance parts. But it does mean increased revenues, increased options for growing your business, in terms of specifically other operations like the body shop, like software applications, like keeping the vehicle electronics infrastructure healthy, and so on and so forth going into the future. This also means introducing new business models which are going to differ from the core competency of the industry participants at the moment. Because with this change in the overall structure of the environment, as well as increase in the software side of it, we see a lot of non-core activities also being the interest areas of OEMs as well as dealers and distributors in the country. So with the upskilling of its workforce and upskilling of business models, we are seeing newer areas that industry participants are going to focus upon. Also, one key area that a lot of dealers, distributors, as well as OEMs are focusing or will be focusing upon, or are expected to focus upon, are the out of warranty vehicles, right? Because these days it's not just about selling your vehicle and keeping your customer within the service paradigm of your company when the vehicle is within warranty. with so much of additional pressure coming into the market regarding competition intensity, other brands coming in, local brands coming up. So it will not just be prudent to engage your customer for a 2-year, 3-year, or a 5-year, 6-year period. It will make more sense to be associated with your customer for out of warranty vehicles also. And just as a side note, this is where we have helped a lot of family businesses in Saudi Arabia expand into independent aftermarket, and we see the concepts of private labeling, growth in independent aftermarket spare parts with equivalent quality as the genuine parts going forward into the market. So the understanding is changing, the trends are shifting, and hence the overall expanse and business nature of the market participants is also evolving going forward. And lastly, but not the least, as I mentioned, that upskilling, upgrading, and going into higher technology offerings, this is going to be a driving force for the entire region. Sorry. A quick summarization of what we have discussed. Some of the key areas that we see going forward into the future are people retaining their vehicles for a longer period, which basically increases the overall age of the vehicles going forward into the vehicles in operation or the vehicle park. We have discussed about aftermarket branded products, finding more significance into the market, the competition intensity, the growing digitalization, as well as the complexity of the vehicle, as well as the business environment going forward. Now, what all of this means is that, in terms of revenue generating capacity and potential, we see the car to have far more business impacts into the future. It's not going to be just, selling your car, selling your spares, selling your services. It'll be a lot of added revenue streams going forward. Now, with all these regional and MENA related trends, what does KSA have an impact on the Saudi Arabian automotive landscape? We see connected vehicles having a moderate impact going forward, autonomous vehicles having a limited impact, as well as shared vehicles having a limited impact. But what is most important is the electrification of the business space that is going to have the highest impact, right? And the basis of this trends analysis is are the different discussions that we keep having with the regional as well as the global OEMs, their local and regional partners, as well as the independent surveys that we keep conducting at the consumer level, which Robin has discussed in his fireside chat. Um, the basis of this information is primarily based on the real life information that we are getting from the consumers who are in the space, and from that aspect we derive these medium term, short term, and long term impacts that are going to affect the overall Saudi Arabian landscape. I now will quickly look into the the most important part of this discussion, which are the opportunities and the recommendations for Saudi Arabian market. Now, before going into the opportunities present, as we always do, understanding our customer is the most important aspect of being a very important part of this economy, right? So what we have for you over here are some of the main trends which are expected to drive Saudi Arabian mobility space going forward. As we have seen, price sensitivity post COVID has been one of the most talked about areas in the mobility space. um, Consumers are postponing their repairs, they're preferring independent aftermarket outlets, they're preferring small and medium organized businesses as a point of service in the future. And we have also seen the physical presence of a lot of independent aftermarket brands which are driving this, basically capitalizing on the price sensitivity that is ongoing in the country as well as the region. When we went to the consumers and we spoke to in an excess of about 1,000 1,200 respondents, what we are seeing is the dependence on online shopping, which is evident with the growth of Amazon, Noon, and the other different digital platforms that are growing. We are seeing that about 40 to 50% consumers are willing to buy parts online. Keyword over here is willing, right? What the online platforms will be able to deliver the quality perception and the quality consciousness, that has to be looked into going forward. But the willingness is there. That's the most alarming and the most important key takeaway from this trend, that the willingness is there. So it's up to the business houses to capitalize on that and make sure that it's an additional revenue stream going forward. We have seen that close to about 55% of the consumers believe that service location is very crucial. We'll take you through the numbers in the later slides, but we are getting numbers like my service station needs to be located within 18 to 20 minutes of my residence, right? My showroom location needs to be between 10 to 12 minutes of my residence. Actually, this is one of the most important driving factors that we use in our network optimization projects. This concept of what is the heat map zone based on the spending potential of each and every block of each and every city in Saudi Arabia. Going forward, network optimization is definitely going to be pivoted around these factors, where the consumer requirement of having the services and the products very close by is going to define the choices that the consumer is going to make. With local manufacturing, local development, of course, ESG focus, circular economy focus, that's one of the 17 SDG goals for the country as well as globally. So we see ESG focus as one of the key areas that the OEMs and the locally available brands that they are focusing, and they will be focusing going forward into the future, which will translate in having greener supply chains, having more more durable parts, and of course reducing wastage going forward, and somehow recycling that wastage into your existing value chain. One key digital aspect that we are seeing going forward in the region as well as very strongly in Saudi Arabia is the growth of subscription based economies, right? So it's not just a matter of charging the consumer on a lump sum or the entire life of the vehicle. Now, the way things are positioned going forward into the future, it will be on usage based. The more you use your car, the more you pay for your insurance. The more you use concepts like parts as a service, concepts like newer revenue streams you will be using more, so on and so forth, including battery as a service as well, which is one of the key drivers of electrification in a lot of economies globally. Now, what does it mean in terms of shift in overall light vehicles market for Saudi Arabia? We are of course seeing a lot of electrification. There's a lot of discussion around electrification happening. We are expecting about 0.22 million electric vehicles to be on road in the MENA by 2027, right? But we are also expecting an overall slowdown in the vehicles in operation. We are seeing this is a trend that has been there for the past 4 to 5 years, specifically heightened by COVID and economic pressures, that the overall age of the VIO is increasing in Saudi Arabia because the consumer is more skeptical in spending out of pocket, and hence this translates into pressures on profits for business houses and industry participants into the future. Also, we are seeing a lot of shared mobility growth. You have advertisements of not only Uber everywhere, but newer entrants like Genie everywhere on the streets of Riyadh at the moment, right? So shared mobility, not only in terms of ride hailing and ride sharing, but also in the terms of ownership patterns like rental and leasing, that is increasing into the market. And we see a lot of global interests in the rental and leasing space in Saudi Arabia at the moment, right? What does it mean? How does it make my overall business environment more complex? It means that as a business owner, we need to look at upskilling. We need to look at a lot of new technologies, a lot of new business models, a lot of new kind of products which are coming up into the market, right? 4 to 5 years back, Saudi Arabia was a traditional automotive marketplace, primarily focused on trading as a service, right? We are seeing the evolution of Saudi Arabia in becoming a manufacturing giant in the region, in becoming a technology center, a technology hub in the region as well as globally, right? What does it mean for the overall business environment? It means, to be very honest, a lot of trouble, right? Traditional way of doing business, looking at technology, is completely going to get revamped. What are you doing as a business owner, as an industry participant, to look at this change and this transformation, and how are you prepared for this complexity going forward? We have seen a lot of focus on circular economies driven by the government, the public investment fund, the Saudi investment recycling company, which is now a conscious effort on recycling that the country has taken forward. We see a lot of focus on circular economy. It's not going to be that we use our plastic bottles one time and we trash them. The circular economy is going to be a positive and a very imminent requirement for all business participants going forward. So, are we as business entities prepared for the circular economy and the downstream revenue optimization models going forward? So, this is another complexity that we see going forward into the future. Connected cars obviously mean a lot of issues on data privacy, customer retention, a lot of options for generative and predictive AI going forward, which obviously boils down to monetization of this data, right? So as we have discussed with Toyotas, the Hyundais, Ford, General Motors, on their understanding of how business wise it makes sense to develop protected features for connected cars. We have discussed on what happens when the change in users or change in ownership happens. There's a lot of focus on data privacy and connectivity at the moment on the global OEM side. There's a lot of support which is happening from the government side as well. Localizing the data centers, that's one of the key areas of protecting the data that the government is very focused upon. That's although a little bit challenging for the OEMs, but in the long run that creates a very secure environment for all these data to be monetized by the business entities. As well as this digitalization is adding to the skill addition and the upskilling of our workforces going forward. So nowadays we see a lot of focus on electronics engineers, software engineers in the region going forward, right? The concept that mechanical, automotive, or production engineers can work in the mobility space, that has been completely redefined globally as well as locally, right? So we see a lot of upskilling, counter-skilling happening in the region, where talent acquisition firms like Adeco, who are our long-term knowledge partners, even they are proposing solutions where business houses can change from being a hardcore mechanical engineering oriented entity to a more software and a electronics oriented entity. Doesn't mean that you have to do a new degree, it just means you need to upskill certain part of your workforce, right? As we have been discussing, digitalization, e-retailing, online sales, this is the one of the key driving forces going forward into the region. So here we take this opportunity to look at what are the challenges and the opportunities which are present in the mobility space at the moment. One of the key challenges is that the limitation of the do-it-yourself segment, it's very limited. Our calculation is under about 5% at the overall vehicle level, but of course, if you look at the accessories and added parts level, the DIY percentage is a little bit more. We are seeing the niche products creating, a larger space for themselves. We see a lot of, vehicle remodeling happening, which is going to increase as the number of vehicle enthusiasts and the technologies possible increase into the market. We have seen a lot of cataloging inefficiencies. For example, like during the COVID, there was a obvious shortage of body parts in the region, specifically on the Asian make vehicles, right? So catalog inefficiencies and the difference between what is available physically and what is available in your system digitally, that is one of the key challenges that we see going forward into the market. Because Saudi Arabia, we have to understand, Saudi Arabia is in a very important phase of of the country's history. It's a phase of transformational growth. Here, what you put in your system and what you have in your storage, that is definitely going to mismatch, and this is going to throw obvious problems for all ERP implementation companies and all companies who are planning to take their storage and warehouse management digital, right? So this is an obvious challenge going forward. Delivery lead time, for sure, this is a very big challenge, because 21% of our respondents have mentioned that, failing delivery lead times is one of the factors that we would choose going forward, of changing our, brand of preference. And of course, reverse logistics, what happens in case you have a, a part failure, a system failure, how well do you handle your vehicle recalls? We are seeing that, you know even high technology products like the Cybertruck are being recalled globally, right? So, going forward, this is going to be an obvious challenge as technology increases. So, reverse logistics is one area where companies will have to, seriously look into. But how do these challenges translate as opportunities? We are seeing more than 50%, more than half of the consumers' willingness to purchase products and services online. For the mobility space, this is phenomenal, I would say. Considering 5 to 6 years back, during the pre COVID times, it all used to be physical, right? But obviously, newer challenges throw you newer opportunities. So we are seeing the willingness to rely on, online platforms increasing, and hence you would see all, B2B, B2C companies offering a certain part of their products and services online. Another opportunity is, we are seeing the option for the third party as an installer, right? So we are seeing the growth of medium and small enterprises into setting up just a service platform where I just come and I assemble your parts going forward into the future, in the business, right? Of course, digitalizing your ordering system and your overall, parts platform. This is what we have already discussed, that onboarding smaller garages and retailers into the business, that will help you enhancing your value chain, in not being limited to just the offerings that you are offering from your digital workplace, but it will also mean, being a means for those business entities who cannot support such a high level of digitalization and data protection on your platform. So this is an obvious growth opportunity going forward. And of course, do it yourself, that is, the global trend. As a mobility market matures, the DIY percentage only increases. Since we are estimating it at currently at, 5 to 8%, so you can see the 90% of the space is still available. So business houses which are coming up with propositions on DIY, we see a lot of future for these business houses going forward. A quick summary of the growth levers. We have showcased what it means at the retail level, at the after sales level, and how you can future proof your business. Um, Majority of these pointers we have discussed, so I'll quickly speak upon how you can future proof your business. We are looking at, about 4 to 5 areas where your business can be future proof. So focusing on ESG is one of the key areas where, as a business house, you should always keep a separate focus, to be sustainable going forward into the future. Um, as we see more and more connected and autonomous technologies going forward, ADAS enabled specialization is going to be a differentiator in the future for the industry participants. Um, Connected solutions and engagement with the consumer for the entire vehicle life cycle, not only just the within warranty vehicle life cycle, but post warranty vehicle life cycle. Customer engagement going forward is going to make sure that your customer base is protected, and, it's a revenue generating customer base. You're not losing it after the first 2, 3, or 5 years of ownership. Of course, every OEM, every dealer, sub dealer is investing in the electrification of the fleet. So, understanding, investing in servicing tools, the infrastructure, training your workforce. This is a sure shot way of preventing a certain part of your workforce from becoming obsolete. And last but not the least, that is why it is highlighted, circular economy focus. Until unless you regenerate the value that you have invested upon as a business owner, in the Saudi Arabian mobility space, until unless you regenerate that value, it will be impossible for you to be profitable going forward. If we keep this concept of use and throw, prevalent in the country, there will be a time where, people who capitalize on circular economy will be the difference makers in the economy, right? Because if we look at a tire, a consumer is investing about 150 one 1500 reals to 2500 reals in a tire, right? A commercial vehicle tire. I'm focusing on commercial vehicles because for commercial vehicle companies, tires, batteries, lubricants are a major part of their opex. And after a 180,000 200,000 kilometer run, you end up trashing your tire, whereas on material consumption is just 28 to 30% of the material that has been consumed. 70% of the material still left behind, for which, as a business owner, as a fleet company, as a logistics company, you yourself have paid, right? You have not realized that value, and you have ended up you know trashing that component just because close to 30% of its material has been consumed. So what does it mean? It means an opportunity to recycle your tire, an opportunity to retreat your tire, an opportunity to regenerate the value and make sure that you add in the life cycle of the product, not just limited to first ownership life cycle, but going up till second and third ownership as well, right? So focus on circular economy is something that we as a company, we really propagate in the country, and we see a lot of enthusiasm and a lot of interest from the market participants in the country. Um, when we look at it from the automotive industry perspective, when we see at manufacturing, what does circular economy mean? It means using more sustainable and green materials, changing your business processes to closed loop recycling, and making sure that your designs, that your platforms are modular in concept. That's what it means on the manufacturing side of it. Of course, we are talking about becoming a manufacturing hub. Hence, we need to keep in mind these concepts on manufacturing going forward as well, right? What does it mean on my vehicle retail side? It means having, an overall green value chain, making sure that your value chain participants are green in nature, right? They're giving back to the environment in one way or the other. It can be green business practices, it can be green logistics, it can be recyclable goods, and so on and so forth. And what does it mean? That you transform from being a competitive economy to being a collaborative economy. That means sharing a lot of resources, sharing a lot of business models, and hence sharing the profit and making it more long term and more sustainable going forward into the future. What does it mean for my after sales business? It means making sure that your mechanical and your the physical components, their life cycle is increased. How do you increase the life of a physical or a mechanical component? By having preventive maintenance drilled into your usage practices going forward. The more the market participants talk about, propagate, educate the consumer on preventive maintenance, the more longer term we will see that these components are having their effective life, right? Of course, more electrification means making the electric vehicle defect free, starting problem free. Uh, the problems that we see in our mobile phones, they should not be happening on our electric vehicles. So troubleshooting your entire electrified value chain, that is definitely a way of maintaining a green and a sustainable economy going forward. Of course, with the EVs, we will have larger batteries, heavier batteries, more capable batteries going forward into the future, right? And the life of the batteries, the kilometers produced from a single charge, they're just going to increase into the future. With more batteries and larger and higher capacity batteries, maintaining battery health, maintaining battery recyclability, that is an obvious requirement for any electrified economy going forward into the future. And lastly, looking at end of life, we have spoken about battery, tires, complete end of life. So second life applications are going to be a game changer going forward, which can be remanufacturing, recycling, retreading, and so on and so forth. In the interest of time, I'm going to skip this particular slide because this kind of like summarizes what we have discussed on batteries, on green supply chains, green value chains, and so on and so forth. With one last note, I would like to end this session. As as an economy, we are looking at becoming a localized, a completely localized value chain. Hence, it is very important for us to keep this environment going also into the future and make sure that this value chain is sustainable next 50, 100 years into the future. So with technology, let us also look at the environment as well as the sustainability of our business practices and make sure that we are on the right green path going forward. So I'll kind of like quick skip this about Frost and Sullivan because we are pressed for time. But a quick look at our regional presence. This is just the Middle East team, Middle Eastern Africa team. We are present in more than 30 countries globally, uh, offering different areas of solutions for business, industry, economy drivers, governments, and so on and so forth, which range from evaluating the overall universe to curtailing strategies focused towards your particular business, finally supporting you in implementation as well as monitoring and optimization. How do we approach this? We invite industry participants. We are there in Automechanika academies throughout the region. We engage in different kinds of dialogues and different kind of councils, wherein we invite industry participants, local and global, to participate with us on our think tanks, share experiences, share best practices, and finally provide a actionable platform for companies to come to action. So that's it. Thank you so much for your time and your efforts. I think maybe we have like 30 seconds or so to take the questions. So maybe just a couple of questions from the audience or just one question. Yes, please.
Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum assalam.
My name is Mohanad.
Thank you.
Thank you for a great presentation. We got a lot of information.
Thank you.
And unfortunately, I saw that to make profit, you have to reduce head count. By,
I'm sorry. To make profit?
yes, you have to reduce the head count by work as multi-brand. Okay.
Yes.
I
Yes.
saw it in your presentation.
Yes.
Unfortunately, for AV vehicles,
Mm-hmm.
if you go to the, as example, Lucid,
Mm-hmm.
they will request you some certain tools, equipment, and setup. So you will be matched with them and they will give you authorization.
Very much.
If you go to another company, they will give you another
course.
tools, another training, another.
course.
So it will be costly to have multi-brand for EV, not like petrol vehicles.
Yes.
Nowadays, we have a lot of petrol vehicles, multi-brand shops.
Mm-hmm.
What is the possibility of have multi-brand shops for EV vehicles in Saudi Arabia?
Sure.
Thank
Thank you so much for the question, Mohanad. Actually, the answer to your question lies in the last statement that you made, right? Reason why I say that the growth driver that we have listed, going multi-brand, that specifically focuses about vehicle retailing, right? It doesn't talk on the perspective of after sales or services platforms, right? It talks about in vehicle retailing. If this is a trend that we are seeing in the ICE vehicles currently, and going forward, this is what we are expecting also in the EV space, that cost pressures, revenue pressures, real estate pressures, capex pressures, they are forcing the sub dealer level people to go multi brand, right? We have had so many inquiries from OEMs on devising a sub dealer KPI optimization platform where the OEMs will be controlling the KPIs of these sub dealers and sub dealers because they're so much focused on the overall value chain growth. Why I mention this is because the shift from being a single branded sub dealer to a multi branded sub dealer is very apparent. Post COVID, everyone is going in that direction. Hence, in terms of vehicle retailing, we do not expect much of a change between ICE and electric fleets, right? In terms of vehicle retailing, it's how you sell the car, and this is what we're getting from the consumers also. Consumers nowadays don't want to go the entire length of Cross Road, go to 10 different showrooms, then make the choice. They would ideally make their first level of choice digitally, then they will come to one particular multi-branded showroom, look at all the cars, make their partial decisions, and then go and purchase. We, for vehicle retailing, we see the entire exact same model replicating into the future. So that's our stance on EV vehicle retailing going forward. Thank you so much, everyone. Yeah, and thank you so much. Thank you so much for the opportunity. Thanks.